Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Congressional Update Membership Luncheon sponsored by Battelle. It's so great to see you all. This is only our second in-person event, and bit by bit, more and more people are coming out to join us. So I'm so happy to see you all today. I'm Lori Matson. I'm President and CEO of the Tri-City Regional Chamber. Today, we're pleased to host Congressman Dan Newhouse for what has become an annual August tradition. We look forward to hearing updates from Washington, D.C., as well as his perspective on key issues impacting Central Washington and here at home in the Tri-Cities. After Congressman Newhouse has some brief comments to deliver, we'll take some questions from the audience. We want to make sure we hear from you today. Congressman Newhouse has been working very hard to represent Central Washington's priorities in Congress. He's introduced legislation to improve forest management and prevent catastrophic wildfires. It's so smoky today, unfortunately. Protect and maintain our critical water infrastructure and deliver solutions to the agricultural labor crisis and the Farmworker Modernization Act. He's also committed to strengthening broadband connectivity and rural communities, as he's recently sponsored the Broadband for Rural America Act, which authorizes more than $7 billion for USDA broadband connectivity programs. This legislation was introduced by Representative Glenn G.T. Thompson, who is also with us here today. As always, ensuring fiscal responsibility and jumpstarting our economy remain his highest priorities. Congressman Newhouse serves on the House Appropriations Committee, which recently approved spending bills for fiscal year 2022, and he worked to include critical funding to ensure the federal government maintains its morale and legal obligation to cleaning the Hanford site. He introduced the National Signing Bonus Act in May to convert existing pandemic unemployment benefits into limited time signing bonuses for new hires, incentivizing Americans to get back to work and allowing our local economies to recover. Next week, he'll be hosting a teletown hall with Central Washington small business owners and the Small Business Administration to help local businesses get answers, relief, and the relief they need. So at this time, I'd like to introduce all the elected officials that have joined us today. And again, I'll begin by introducing our guest of honor, Congressman Dan Newhouse. If you'd stand so we could recognize you and all others, please. Thank you, Dan. Stay standing if you would. And again, we have Congressman Newhouse's colleague, U.S. Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson, representing Pennsylvania's 15th District and ranking member of the House Agricultural Committee. We're so glad you could join us today. Also locally, we have City of Kennewick Councilman Jim Milbauer. Please stand, Jim, if you're here. Yep, perfect. And we have from the Port of Benton, I believe we have all of our commissioners, Jane Haggerty, Roy Keck, and Bob Larson. They're all here. There they are. And from the Port of Pasco, Commissioner Jim Kleinworth. Jim's here. There he is. And Franklin PUD Commissioner Stu Nelson. There we are. And if I've missed anyone, please stand. We certainly try to watch our RSVP list so we can recognize all of our elected officials. Thank you so much for being with us here today, all of our elected officials. We greatly appreciate your service and dedication to our region. Next, I'd like to ask all of you to stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. You may be seated. Next, we're going to have a brief presentation regarding our Small Business Incentive Program, an innovative program that's been helping small businesses since 2011, thanks to the generous support of Washington River Protection Solutions. Now in its 11th year, WRPS has generously provided $30,000 per year to chamber member businesses. We're grateful for the continued support of WRPS so we can offer this unique program to our members. This summer, qualifying members had the opportunity to apply for up to $1,000 to purchase items or services that would help strengthen their business. Joining us today are representatives from WRPS, including President and CEO John Eschenberg, Project Manager PK Brockman, and WRPS Chief Engineer and Regional Chamber Board Member Karthik Subramaniam. So as John Eschenberg comes to the stage to join me, Please join me in a round of applause, thanking them for all they do for our small businesses. You got it. There you go, John. Good to see you.
All right. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Wow. It's been a while since I've been in front of a big crowd here, so this is really good. It's a time warp here. Hey, so the bottom line is this. We all know small businesses drive our economy, not only at the local level, state level, but nationally. It's really the engine that's behind it. And as Lori said, our company is so committed to driving and developing the small business community here. We've been very fortunate to put into place about $30,000 a year over the last 11 years, impacting some 350 small businesses in our community. In fact, we're so committed to small businesses since 2008, actually, our company has done $1.5 billion worth of business with smalls. And the kind of work that we do each day at Hanford, it really does require, we rely on these small businesses to make us all very successful. So for those out there that support us through the small businesses, thank you very much for what you do. And I'd like to congratulate all of the winners, 30 winners this year. So thank you very much for what you do. All right, Lori, back to you.
Thank you so much, John, and to everyone at WRPS for this great program. Next, I'd like to invite Elizabeth Holt to the stage to announce our July members of the month and present membership plaques to our newest members. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Lori. Like she mentioned, I'm honored to be up here and recognize some of the newest members who are able to join us here in an in-person crowd today. So if I call your name, please join us on the stage or right off the stage and accept your membership plaque from Lori, and we'll pose for a group photo. So first off, we have Jill James, Michelle Clark, and Doug Granitz with Title I. We have Veronica Campos with Veronica Campos Homes, Dee Pridemore with Tri-City Family Expo, Nathan Steele with Tri-Cities Cider House, Amanda Mason with Cap K-View Local News, Laverne McGrath with Think About Thinking, Yennefer Fernandez with BioLife, Bert Day with Bert Day Consulting, M. Perina Rao with Rao Group, and Cynthia McFarlane with Therapeutic Writing of Tri-Cities. We'll just wait while they gather here. Sorry. What a great group. Thank you all for your investment and participation in the Regional Chamber. Let's give them a round of applause. What a great group. Thank you all. Next, we would like to recognize some of the Chamber's longstanding members. Please draw your attention to the screens. The members listed have been involved and participated with the Regional Chamber for 20 years or longer. Let's give these longstanding members a round of applause as well. Last, it is my honor to announce the July members of the month. This month, the Regional Chamber's Awards and Recognition Committee chose to recognize two outstanding organizations in our community: Washington State University Tri-Cities, go Cougs, and Columbia Basin College, go Hawks. Both institutions have supported the Regional Chamber for decades. CBC has been a member for 32 years, and WSU Tri-Cities has been a member for a whopping 42 years, back when it was known as the Joint Center for Graduate Study. Both schools are instrumental in My Tri 2030 Regional Visioning Project, the Tri-Cities Diversity Summit, and much more. Most recently, both organizations partnered and invested with the Chamber and the Association of Washington Business to launch the Washington Workforce Portal, a great asset to both employers and students in our area. We are fortunate to have such forward-thinking institutions right here in our region. both of which frequently partner for the good of our community. Please help me welcome Chancellor of WSU Tri-Cities, Sandra Haynes, and President of CBC, Rebecca Woods, to the stage to accept their award.
All right, let's give them another big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to add, Elizabeth mentioned the Washington Workforce Portal, and I'd like to just add that Battelle recently came on as an investor of that as well. So if you're interested in internships, either having them or giving them, please visit the WashingtonWorkforcePortal.org and see all of our partners on there. So speaking of Battelle, today, our presenting sponsor is Battelle, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Steve Ashby, who is the director of the Pacific Northwest National Lab, to say a few words about PNNL and to introduce Congressman Dan Newhouse. Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Lori. And on behalf of Battelle, which proudly operates the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory for the U.S. Department of Energy, it is our pleasure to be today's luncheon sponsor, and it's great to see so many old friends here in person again. We wish to thank the Tri-Cities Regional Chamber for bringing us together today for an opportunity to hear directly from our Congressman Dan Newhouse, who I'll have the pleasure of introducing shortly. The Chamber is an important partner and advocate for all of us, and we appreciate its leadership and its enduring support. We also thank you for this opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on at the laboratory. As for all of you, 2020 was a challenging year for PNNL. More than 90% of our 5,300 staff quickly pivoted more than a year ago to teleworking, allowing our essential workers to stay on campus to keep it safe for those who had to attend lab experiments or conduct classified research. We learned new ways of getting things done and engaging our colleagues, which allowed us to stay safe and productive all these months. And it was an extremely productive year, in many ways, one of our most. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, our dedicated staff delivered impactful science and technology across a range of topics. For example, they made fundamental discoveries about quantum computing and climate change. They invented better batteries and turned food waste into useful fuels. And they aided the global effort against COVID-19. And like many of you in this room, they did so while juggling unprecedented challenges and demands at home, taking care of small children, tending elderly parents, and helping their neighbors in need. Our staff have also helped us to envision the future of work at the laboratory, as many of you are thinking about it in your own businesses. We realize that the pandemic has forever changed the way we think about work and how we do it. We recognize that we must embrace a hybrid work arrangements if we are to attract and retain the talent that we need. For instance, as we plan for a post-pandemic world, and we will eventually get there, we do expect nearly half our staff to telework one or more days a week. Meanwhile, we continue to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion as another essential ingredient in our secret sauce of success. And here, I wish to thank Lori and the Chamber for its annual Tri-Cities Diversity Summit. It's an incredibly important event. It provides business leaders with the tools and training that we need, and it helps to make our community more attractive to prospective employees and their families. As we look ahead, you can count on PNNL to continue to deliver the breakthrough science and innovative solutions that will help us to decarbonize the energy system, combat climate change, and bolster our national security. We're also looking forward to the completion and dedication of the new Energy Sciences Center this fall. Representative Newhouse played a vital role in Congress's decision to fund this beautiful new facility. He was an equally strong advocate for our new grid-scale energy storage facility, helping to secure funding that will allow us to accelerate progress and break ground early next year. And we hope, Congressman Newhouse, that you and everyone here will have a chance to come out and celebrate progress in both these facilities as we arrange those events. But now it's my pleasure to introduce a great friend and advocate for our region, Congressman Dan Newhouse, who represents Washington's 4th District. Congressman Newhouse serves on the House Committee of Appropriations, including subcommittees on energy and water development, agriculture, and the legislative branch. These are important committee assignments that reflect both his influence and the respect he commands from his colleagues in House leadership. His strong support for our community is evident in the work that he does every day on our behalf in the House of Representatives, where he shines a light on the critical issues facing our community, advocates for responsibly funding the National Lab and Hanford cleanup, and champions ways to grow our future workforce, among many of the other issues he focuses on. And while I mentioned a few specific areas previously, Congressman Newhouse's advocacy helps enable the breadth of the work done at the laboratory and the associated outcomes that contribute to the economic prosperity of our region and the nation. Congressman Newhouse is a longtime advocate for our state, previously serving 5 terms in the Washington State House of Representatives and as director of the State Department of Agriculture. As a 3rd-generation farmer and businessman in the Yakima Valley, Dan is a neighbor with deep roots in Central Washington who brings his firsthand understanding of our area's priorities and issues to Congress. It is an honor to have him with us today. Please join me in a warm welcome for Congressman Dan Newhouse.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Steve, for that introduction. You read it just as I wrote it. Perfect. So it's been a long time, at least for me, to meet with you. It seems like about a year and a half, or 2 years. Too long. Let's not do that again, okay? Let's move forward. And I agree with you. Let's say post-pandemic more as often as we can. But it's good to see everybody. It's a pleasure to be back here with you. So now you know a little bit more about me. Some things I wasn't sure you probably wanted to know, but so thanks, Shay, for helping getting us going. It's always good to have a little fun. And thank you for everything you do for the Tri-Cities Chamber and the whole business community in the Tri-Cities. You guys are awesome. You really are. So thank you, Steve, Dr. Ashby, for introducing me today. I can't say enough about the great work that happens out at the lab. We truly have a diamond in our community with the National Laboratory, and Dr. Ashby, you've been a tremendous leader there. So big round of applause for the lab and Battelle. And I'm really happy to introduce to you. You've already heard that I have a special guest here today. Glenn Thompson is his name, GT for short. And Glenn, or GT, is a member of Congress from the great state of Pennsylvania, I believe the 15th district, which is the central part of the state, which perfect because I represent the central part of my state. GT is our Republican leader on the Agriculture Committee in the House of Representatives. So when we regain the majority as Republicans, Mr. Thompson will be our committee chairman. And that's a huge position of influence. Yes. I invited GT to come to really, selfishly, yes, I wanted him to get to meet as many people in Central Washington as possible, and wanted him to see as the lead Republican on the Ag Committee. I wanted him to see agriculture in Central Washington so that he'd be familiar with what we do here and the challenges that we have and the successes we have and the things that it's going to take for us to be able to continue on into the future. So welcome, GT. I'm just delighted you're here. I know there's going to be some time for questions, and that's probably the best part of my presentation to you is answering questions that you have on your mind. So I look forward to that. If there's really tough ones, GT is going to take them, but I'll try to answer the easy ones. Just wanted to cover some of the things though, as the congressional update, what's going on in Washington, DC. And it goes without saying, since the last time I talked to you in a setting like this, a lot's happened. Like I said, that's been 2 years ago. My gosh, 2020, who wants to relive 2020? In a lot of ways, that, like I said, we want to put the pandemic behind us. But certainly that has driven a lot of the agenda over the last year and a half in a lot of different ways, trying to sustain our economy, doing things that we could to bring together resources so that our business communities could keep going in some fashion, to keep people that couldn't work, keep them propped up as well, to try to keep the engines of our economy at least on idle so that we could be ready to rebound when we were able. And it hasn't been easy, and we haven't been perfect at it. I'll be the first to admit, but I think in a lot of ways we've done an admirable job setting up some of the brand new programs to respond to some of the needs in lightning speed in government terms, like the Paycheck Protection Program. My gosh, we set that up in just a couple of months. Those kind of things aren't easy, and I gotta say, it's sometimes popular to talk negatively about federal employees, but there are a lot of people that really stepped up to the plate to make a lot of the things happen. So I got to give credit where credit is due to a lot of the different agencies that were responsible for helping us get the job done. But it hasn't been an easy year by any means. And you guys meaning the business community, small businesses you represent in this area, have really been on the front lines. It's been a rough time, and I'm willing to guess that I'm glad to see that there's new recruits coming in, Lori. That's awesome. But I'm willing to bet that there are some that aren't here today because they didn't make it through the tough time that we're emerging from, and that's sad. It's tough. I tell you, I have about an 8-block walk to work every morning. And when it's 90 degrees and humid out, it's not fun. But the amount on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, DC, the number of businesses that are shuttered, literally closed for good, plywood on their windows, it blows your mind. And fortunately, yes, we have some of that here, but not to the extent that I've seen in other places. So kudos to you. And I just want to express my thanks to you for all you've done in keeping your businesses afloat. It's not been easy, keeping people that work for you as whole as possible. It's been hard. It's been hard. So what's going on in DC today? I think the Senate is still in session, GT. You probably know the one item on their agenda that they've been working on. It's been very clear that they want to get an infrastructure package done. There's a bipartisan deal that is close. The details of that just came out over the weekend. I've got some of my staff here. Travis has been diligently reading through that. It's 2,700 pages. I don't know why you're not done with it, Travis. Come on, pick it up a little bit. There's a lot to absorb there. It's almost $1 trillion in responding to some of the infrastructure needs that we have in this country, which are many. The roads, the bridges, the airports, all of the, but it's also other things like water infrastructure, the things that, don't have to tell you it's hot and dry. It's only going to get to 100 today. Is that right? But the water infrastructure is critical for areas of in the available for growing populations, for dealing with climate change and drought that seems to be ever more prevalent. making sure that we can continue to grow and our economies and our population can continue to thrive. So there's things that address that in the infrastructure bill as well. I think, I don't know all the details yet, but I think that there's quite a bit of money for highways, that kinds of things without increasing the gas tax, which in a state like us, we always want to pay more in gas tax, right? Oh. We're one of the highest in the nation already. And so, but they're trying to be creative on how we pay for things. One thing that we have to keep in mind that as a country, I know this isn't news to any of you, our debt, anybody remember what it is? And this isn't, you don't get a trip to a winery if you win this, but it's over $28 trillion, which is a big number. And it's increased a lot over the last few years. In the last year and a half, it's increased a lot. So one of the things that has to be part of moving forward is trying to be somewhat fiscally responsible as well, and respond to pressures that we have facing us and facing our children and our grandchildren if we don't. And so that's I hope part of this as well. Like I said, I don't know all the details yet, but pay fors, have you heard that term? We can't just borrow $1 trillion. We have to have ways to pay for this. And that's one of the big points of discussion going on right now. Like I said, water infrastructure is huge. The Yakima Basin, the Columbia Basin, cities and towns across the country also need increases in water infrastructure, bringing water to the residents, to industry. So those kinds of things are addressed as well. Like I said, we're getting more details all the time. I can't tell you one way or the other how I'm going to vote on it yet, if it even gets to the House. There's still some challenges before it even gets over to our chamber. So stay tuned. If there's priorities in there that you see, I want to hear about them so that we make sure that, as much as we can, that we respond to the needs here in Central Washington. One of the things that, I hope you can hear me, I can hear myself fading away. One of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that there's some inequities in this country as it relates to broadband connectivity, particularly in rural areas. I used to tell people that, I'll believe Congress when they're working on improving broadband when I can stream a movie at my house. We're almost there. But over the last year and a half, not only have people been working online, kids have been going to school online. A lot of people have been receiving their healthcare services online. Certainly in today's modern age, even farmers have to have connectivity on their tractors in order to do the tasks that are required of them out in the field. So reducing this inequity from urban and rural areas on broadband capability is huge. I got to give kudos to Mr. Thompson. Just happens to be, he's a prime sponsor of one of the bills that's going to get us there. And so thank you, GT, for your leadership on that. Rural America we need to have equal access. So that's just a key to our future economically. So that's a huge thing. I think Lori mentioned, if I was listening, that I'm having a telephone town hall next week with the SBA, the Small Business Administration. I want to put a plug in for that, just for small businesses to tune in and learn to see if there's anything that is available through the federal government that could be of assistance to you as you emerge from this tough time that we're in, right? So do we have details on that, you guys? I'm looking at my staff in the back. What day is the telephone town hall, Amanda? August 10th, at what time? 1 p.m., right in the middle of the business day. You'll love that, right? Sorry. But spend an hour with us if you think that there's something that SBA can do for you, and even if you just have questions or wonder, that will hopefully shine the light on some of the things that are available. It's smoky outdoors. You've noticed that? one of the big things that we're facing in the West, not just Washington, but all over the Western United States, with the drought, with the high temperatures, with the conditions that we see in our national forests, state forests, private forests, are wildfires, catastrophic wildfires. And this is the first year I ran for office, we had record-setting fires up in the Okanagan. If you remember that in 2014, seems like that's an annual occurrence now. When I was a kid growing up, I don't think I ever remember seeing the sky the way it has been in the last week. It didn't used to happen, but now it's a common occurrence. It's something you can almost expect. And it's happening all over the country. I'm sorry, I told somebody else this morning, it's even getting the attention of people in Washington, D.C., because you know what? The smoke from our fires has reached the East Coast. People are walking outside going, what's that? Which is, it's a horrible thing, but it's also a good thing that now people see, oh, I kind of understand what you're talking about. And so I'm sorry, GT, for being from Pennsylvania, that you had to come out here for the heat and the smoke, but in a perverse way, I'm glad that you see firsthand the conditions that we face on an all too regular basis. It just underscores the needs that we have in our wildlands, our national forests, grasslands, to better manage the assets that we have. And you'd think that'd be easy and everybody would be on board. And most people are waking up to the fact that we need to do that, but it isn't easy. And we have millions and millions of acres, and the management that is required to properly manage them, to reduce the fuel load in these forests, is a huge job. And then for a lot of different reasons, we don't have the infrastructure in place anymore for our timber industry. How many sawmills have closed over the last 30 years? The people involved in that industry aren't here anymore to a large extent. And so we've got a lot of trees that are truly, and I call them an agricultural product. They just have a lot longer, bigger window between planting and harvesting. But they are sitting out there in the forest, becoming diseased, sick. They're overplanted in a lot of places naturally. And the conditions for catastrophic fires continue to be huge. And that's a big problem. We've addressed it in some ways, giving the Forest Service resources so that they can fight fires as well as do some of this management work. But we still have a long ways to go in solving the problem. So we're trying to tackle that from several different directions, and we're making progress, but we've got a lot more to do. So having the future chairman of the Ag Committee, whose responsibility is the U.S. Forest Service, is a great thing to have GT here today. I couldn't speak to a Tri-City Chamber banquet without mentioning Hanford, the National Laboratory, all the great things that happen right out here in little old Richland. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And I must say, we have to hold the federal government's feet to the fire on an annual basis. We truly do. There's a huge financial obligation on the part of the federal government to fulfill their moral and legal obligation, as Lori said, to continue the cleanup at Hanford. It's a huge job. We're just this far away from literally, I say, flipping the switch. It's not going to be quite that simple, but starting the vitrification plant. We're just, a year from now when we have this banquet, we'll be just days away or months away from that happening. But it takes a continued, dedicated Congress and federal government to make sure that those resources are available. And fortunately, we've been successful at that. And we'll continue to make sure that that happens, because we have to have that consistency moving forward in order for that work to get done. I was disappointed, this administration, unlike some, and not pointing fingers to any particular administration, but every administration that comes in lowballs Hanford and expects the Congress to, we know they're gonna beef it up again. They'll put the money in there, and we do. This year wasn't as bad as many years, but one thing that did happen, they eliminated the PILT program, or the money for the payment in lieu of taxes. It's like, there's always something, right? And our communities here depend on that. This land that was taken over by the federal government is no longer in the tax rolls. But a lot of the needs and the requirements necessary are still here. And so the federal government has to pay their share there as well. So we were able to restore that. Let me ask you to use your imagination just a second. This spring, I was able to be part of a ceremony to recognize a partnership that's been formed. And I'm going to read this. It's Energy Northwest, the Grant County PUD, and X Energy. You all know what those three organizations are doing, right? They've joined together in an effort to come up to build the next generation of nuclear power generation, which is, this is going to be the first of its kind. It's going to be built right here in Richland. And it's projected that this will be the first of hundreds of these reactors. And so I asked you to use your imagination for a second. I think, we're going to get Hanford cleaned up at some point in the future. And we've been talking for years about what post Hanford looks like. Well, I think we're getting a glimpse into the future. We're going to be a nuclear community for a long time to come, regardless. And now we're going to be leaders in manufacturing the future nuclear generation capability and be world leaders in that. So I think, to me, that's pretty cool and pretty exciting. I would be remiss if I sat down and didn't say something too about one more thing, and then we'll have some questions. But we have in this country and in this region, in our own backyard, some of the most important pieces of infrastructure ever built by mankind. I'll go out on a limb and say that. And that comes in the form of the Snake and the Columbia River dams. Pieces of infrastructure that have allowed our communities to grow into what they are, to really turn a desert and into something that produces food for the whole world. Food, fiber, and fuel for the whole world. And let me just invoke to all of you, every single person in this room, that the voices calling for the breaching and the tearing down of those dams are louder than ever. And every single one of us need to stand up and be heard as to how important those dams are to our way of life, our communities here, our economy here. And not just for the Tri-Cities, but for the whole region, and I would say for the whole country. And just want to make sure that I mention that, because those voices, like I said, they're louder than ever, and they're not going away. And we need to be loud as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you very much, Lori, for having me come. It's always amazing after I come that people come back to hear me again. That's a great thing. Thank you very much for your attention. And let me just say it truly is, I represent you in our nation's capital. And I think I've got the best district in the whole country. And it's truly an honor, and I'm very proud to represent Central Washington in the other Washington. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And I look forward to whatever questions you might have. So GT, get ready for the hard ones. But thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Yes. If you talk long enough, there's time for questions. See, that's my whole.
So my question is what's the experience like with trying to get legislation or a bill passed from your point of view? I mean, people read or hear about things, but what's been your perspective of trying to get something changed or amended or passed, personally?
Anything in particular? Or
just bills in general, when you see them go through the House, right?
Yeah.
What's that experience been like? Because you've only been in it for 7 years. You're not a lifelong politician. You you own a business and stuff. So what's that experience been like from the inside of doing that?
Yeah, so the art of lawmaking, legislating, it's a people business. It truly is. If I have an idea or someone in this room tells me of a need that we have in our district, and I go to Washington, DC, I've got to share that with people and express to them why it's important and convince them that this is something that that's important. It could be important to them too, and people in their district perhaps, or at least important enough to people in my district that it's something they should support. And so it truly is a place where you build relationships with people, you make friendships, you get to know them and get to know what their needs are so that you can hopefully be responsive to them. And then they hopefully will reciprocate if they can agree to what you're trying to accomplish and support you. But it truly is as simple as that. It's a very people-oriented business. I'm 1 out of 435. I can't do anything by myself. I've got to build a team, a coalition. I've got to build support for anything I want to do. And that's the, whether right now I'm in the minority. Republicans are the minority by about 5 seats now, 4 or 5 seats. And so that means I need to get friends on the other side of the aisle to agree to that as well. You can't just be in your own political bubble. You've got to expand that bubble a bit to include everybody. So that's why Congress sometimes is accused of it takes forever to do anything. All they do is fight and argue and stuff. It does take a long time. And I think our forefathers set it up that way to take a long time. It should be hard to pass laws. It should be hard to pass laws that all you have to live under, right? It shouldn't be an easy thing. We should debate them and discuss them and I won't say fight about them, but sometimes the debates get pretty heated, but that should be that way. But it is a slow process. It can be excruciatingly slow. In fact, I'm working on something called the Farmworker Modernization Act. There are people in Washington, DC, and I've been working on it since like as long as I can remember, close to 25 years. To get something across the finish line takes a long, long time. But you got to be consistent. You got to be stubborn. You just got to keep pushing ahead every single day and, do what you can to earn victories and move forward. So not an easy job always. And then some people complain that you're not getting anything done. But I know it's tough. Anything else? You got a new watch or you're trying to tell me something. So I guess we're out of time. Is that what you're saying? Almost. Okay. Good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great year. Good to see you all in person. Thank you. Oh, you got more than I thought. And there's your thing.
Thank you. Oh, I get to keep the coin?
Don't you want it?
Yeah, it's cool. All right, one more time for Congressman Dan Newhouse. I know I'm looking around, there's some folks that like I've only seen on Zoom for the past year. I'm just like, wow, this is what you look like in like real person. So if you had a great time today, just being back in person, please round of applause just to the folks at your table and for you for coming out. And then I do want to recognize our sponsor today for the luncheon, Battelle. Thank you so much for sponsoring, being our key sponsor today, to Congressman Dan Newhouse for that wonderful presentation. The fantastic staff of Pasco Red Lion, thank you so much for hosting us here today. Yes. And a sincere thank you for all of you for coming out and being a part of this luncheon. But before we go, business is back and it is time to suit up for the largest in-person event of the year. Registration is already open for the Chamber's annual meeting and awards luncheon. So it's going to be held in just a few weeks on August 25th at the Three Rivers Convention Center. How many of you will be there? I think I need more hands than that. How many of you will be there?
All right, because registration is open. So even if you're not throwing your hands up, it might mean that you don't have your ticket just yet. But don't worry, at tricityregionalchamber.com, you can go there right now, even on your smartphone, and go ahead and nab your tickets for that. Because the cool thing is we're going to be recognizing member businesses and celebrating our successes. Business on a Roll awards will be given. We're going to honor the recipients of the Chamber's Impact Award and the Chamber's Star recipients. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And also brand new this year, you may have seen that we're going to award the most valuable COVID-19 response award. So we're still seeking nominations for this one. And if you know of a company, government entity, or nonprofit organization that went above and beyond during this pandemic, then please, we want to hear from you. So go to tricityregionalchamber.com/annual meeting and make sure you submit them, because I'm a part of the rewards and recognition committee and I'd love to see a lot of nominations. So thank you in advance for that. And as I mentioned, registration is now open for the annual meeting. Hopefully we'll get to see you there. And again, thank you for attending today. I hope you enjoy the presentation. We appreciate you coming out. I'd like to say, go ahead and enjoy the rest of this beautiful Tri-Cities day. Despite the smoke, we will get through this. So thank you so much for coming, and you guys have a beautiful rest of the day.